All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second annual Reimagining Medicine Festival at the University of Kentucky College of Medicine. My name is Kate Cox, and I am a second-year medical student organizing this week's festival along with the UK College of Medicine Vitals Club leadership team, Hina Iqbal and Diala Samadi. The festival started last year at the Dartmouth Giesel School of Medicine as a way to use art to prompt meaningful discussions on changing health equity and access in medicine. I learned about the festival through the American Medical Women's Association Dance Theater and Medicine Task Force and the Asimkla Initiative, and I volunteered to bring the festival here to UKCOM. This year, we wanted to focus on COVID-19 and mental health, using art as a vehicle for deeper discussion on the topics as they relate to healthcare. To do so, we hosted a call for artists and are excited to present 10 incredible pieces on YouTube thanks to the support of the UK Gain Center for the Humanities. If you haven't already seen them, please enjoy the artworks at your leisure. We will put the link in the chat in case you haven't gotten that, but we'll also try and discuss some of those today. We also wanted to see and hear how different professionals at the UK College of Medicine bring together art and medicine on mental health and through COVID-19 by hosting a key speaker series, which has been all this week, and today's final roundtable discussion. So please join me in welcoming Drs. D'Orazio, Hatcher, and Slocum.
Thank you.
So I thought I would just get us started. I have a few questions just to kind of get things going. I was wondering if you all could please tell us a bit about your background and what has inspired you to integrate the arts into your daily practice and life.
Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, April.
Okay. So my background at UK, I started as a faculty member in 2008, and I've been a medical educator primarily. My primary job is to help with gross anatomy, histology, embryology for all the professional students. So I see students at various times, most notably in their first years, but I also see them in second years, with a GI course. I help teach I direct a teaching certificate. So I work with graduate students as well, and anyone who's interested in going into academia and doing teaching afterwards. So since 2008, I've seen lots of students over those years, and I've just kind of grown into, I would say over the last 7 years or so, gained more interest in trying to incorporate the arts in the curricula. With some of the works I shared on Monday were sort of the portfolio showcase culmination of those. I started earlier with getting students to draw and think about, trying to encourage them to go into metacognition about how they learn and connect with each other and that sort of thing. And especially since I have large undergraduate classes, I often wouldn't get to know my students unless they came up to me or unless they sat down in the front. I really had that stadium style classroom, nursing 201. So 300 person room, and those at the top, it's very hard to get to know. And so bringing art into the classroom or other expressions of art, whether it's canvas or poetry or sculptures, I got to know the students much better, and I got to see that connection develop not only between myself and them, but between each other at the showcase. And while I wouldn't say particularly an artist myself, I've definitely delved into music and always appreciated art and loved it. I'm not like Dr. D'Orazio over there with all his cool paintings. But I'm finding myself just more in love with what it fosters, which is the connection between human beings. And I think that's the passion that drives me with many of these projects I've been undertaking in more recent years.
Rob, you want to go next or you want me to go?
Hey, I'll do it. No problem. Thanks. Okay. So, well, again, for those who haven't spoken with me or know me, I'm the Narrative Medicine program coordinator here at UK, and have been doing this since about 2015. So again, that has everything to do with language, with art, in that sense of the art of interacting with people, the art of the words chosen. And I'd say that kind of dovetails with my own background. I mean, I'd say I was a writer before anything else. I was a writer who went off to college, a writer who majored in English and psychology, a writer who went to law school and did trials, talked with people, use of language to find the best possible outcome in different situations. A writer who went on to seminary and then advanced studies in terms of religion, and then teaching in college context for about 20 years, as well as working in parishes. And all of that had a lot to do with the words, with writing and relating a large body of words to a specific context of someone's life and those particular needs. So it's always been a passion of mine, and just to see the substance underneath the appearance, to try to get to the heart of the matter. What's going on in a person's life? What are they feeling? What are they moved by? What are they hurt by? What are they healing from? And to try to get at that through language. But also, since college years, I've been really fascinated by image, by photography. So, I mean, I did a book, like a yearbook that put images and writings together, and I had some photos published. Some years back, I actually did a reflection journal, which put together reflections and photos, and was able to actually read a couple of those short reflections in my presentation earlier this week, and was able to bring out some of the photos. But to me, that, I hope, gives me a sensitivity to the patients that I work with in terms of bringing it back to healthcare. So I was really pleased by the, description of our topic of this week in terms of how the application of art helps to reframe a medical situation. So whenever I work with a patient who has a talent, I by all means try to encourage that. I mean, whether that's writing, as art. I've got a couple of patients I've been working with recently who actually paint, one of whom was kind enough to let me use three of her paintings in my presentation. And the idea that engagement with the creative self helps to transform the situations that may seem overwhelming and hopeless. If the walls of their life seem to be closing them in and no way out, that perspective of art just opens that up. It's another way of looking. I mean, the facts haven't changed, but the way of seeing it, the lens, the viewpoint can and has. And so that's why, to me, this is such an exciting possibility to draw together the various arts and the arts that our patients bring to try to offer the best of healing.
Well, I mean, that's my introduction, right? I mean, that's exactly how I started. I had no interest in doing anything. I mean, I've always been sort of a creative-minded person, but it was always in my science. I'm a physician scientist. I'm a pediatric oncologist here. I have a lab at the Marquis. And as I told most of you on Monday, I guess it was, I got into art because of the despair I was feeling, the walls closing in, like Dr. Slocum said, when I found out that my lab was under investigation for scientific misconduct and had no idea that this was going on. And 16-month investigation that I didn't have any control over, didn't know the outcome, and a gradual realization that, yeah, the guy who I trusted the most, in the world had been doing things inappropriately. And that was awful. I lost 30 pounds, like I said, and gained a lot of it back. But, I needed something because I couldn't, it was this weight on me. And, it all stemmed from a ridiculous going to painting with a twist with a family Thanksgiving project where we all painted Christmas stockings. And, I can't draw, but I found I could express my creativity in other ways with, geometric kind of painting. And so that's how I got into it. And it's just something that's kind of stuck. I find myself thinking, like, I'll wake up thinking about the next pattern or the next place I want to make one for, or something like that. And, every new piece is the best one I've ever done, right? So for me, it was exactly what Dr. Slocum described, a way out of despair. And although it has resolved and the lab is back on track and the person who did the problem for us resigned 2 years ago now, almost, well, a year and a half, you know, that's lasting with me. I'm not sure I'll ever get over that. So.
Wow. So I did want to say I feel so inspired by your all's responses, because I mean, a few things I wrote down too. I feel like with Dr. Hatcher, the way that you described just being an instructor's role, being able to connect with students is so essential to creating like a proper environment for learning, because so much of learning happens whenever you feel safe to make mistakes. So I appreciate so much how you specifically mentioned like just the connection between human beings, and sometimes even seeing them just beyond just students, but seeing them as people. And Dr. Slocum, I was so touched by your self, almost like biography, where you said a writer who did this, a writer who did that. And as someone who loves to journal, I just thought that that was such a beautiful way to honor something that has been with you throughout life and has witnessed every single aspect of your human experience. I thought that was incredible. And Dr. D'Orazio, last but not least, driven by despair, I wrote that down. That is so touching because of how often, and I remember whenever you showed us your paintings, which blew me away, how often so many of them were inspired by plays on light and plays on color, and just how you have totally transformed such a dark time in your life into something that is going to be with you for life. And I wonder if, you know, because sometimes we aren't able to get through certain experiences, does that serve ultimately as an infinite source of inspiration for us till, you know, our lives end? I guess that's a little bit morbid, but really like a lifelong source of motivation and inspiration, just because things have been so dark and have been so difficult to get through. I mean, it's like you'll always have that time to look back on to reignite forward movement, which I thought was really beautiful. And even especially too with the pandemic, I think all of us have been touched in very unique ways, given your all's experiences by this, and being in your all's roles is not easy. So I wanted to ask, what are some aspects of this work that rejuvenate you? And what are some ways you care for your well-being? I know we've touched on this before too, but also wanted to ask what advice you would give to students who hope to do similar work, be it in healthcare, be it tying creativity into healthcare, be it, you know, just self-care in general.
I think you cannot care.
Can I just jump one thing on that? I just want to say, to follow actually what Dr. D'Orazio was saying, I just want to build on that too, that I believe that it's out of our vulnerability sometimes that's where the spirit gets in, that's where the inspiration gets in, and it's in that broken place. It's not where we've got it all together. And even I look at my history, and I think the times that were so strong, and a lot of times I was just kind of like treading water, and the real quantum jumps took place when it hit the fan. I mean, when I had to adapt, I had to become something more, something different, and that. So that's sort of where the art comes in as well, or that's where the art goes out sometimes. It's out of those places where you've experienced it so deeply. And so just to say the things that help to move that forward. And one other just piece I want to put into this, and one of the things that's very restorative for me is, as I said, certainly writing and the art, but also movement. And I just went Kate was talking about that, and like coming back from her dance class. And I was even talking with my student this term, Michael, about the importance of like working out or having, you know, opportunities. I mean, that's art too. I mean, dance is art, Tai Chi is art, it's a martial art, whatever, basketball, running, any of these things. These are, to me, artistic expressions that are beautiful. I mean, to to watch a sprinter just do a sprint. I mean, that's a work of art. I mean, I can watch my greyhound run across the backyard. That's a work of art. But I'm saying something that can draw together kind of mind, body, and spirit to the person you are. And so it's rejuvenating. I never come back from a workout saying, I wish I hadn't done that. And so that's just, I don't know, another take on what we mean by art.
And I would just add, I forget all the questions you asked, Hina, but you cannot be an effective provider for others unless you provide for yourself, I think. And, you could do it for a little bit, but you're going to burn out, right? And so if you can find something in your life that means something to you, that you can get into and engage with. And, for me, it was an unexpected thing. I didn't touch a paintbrush till I was 54. Okay. The other things I've tried a lot of things. I've tried being a cheesemaker. I've tried fly fishing. None of them really stuck. I bought all the things, of course, but none of them really stuck. But somehow this one stuck because I think it did come out of a place where it helped me heal, and, my daughter was in a children's opera. It's called Brunderbar. And it was an opera that was written and composed by concentration camp prisoners in World War II, and it was all, metaphors for being free and, a better life and stuff. But I think there really is something to that where creativity can come out of just the darkest places, and sometimes the best comes out of the darkest places. I don't count mine as anything near that, but for me, it has been a very important thing. And then to see, as it's developed over the last couple of years, aided by the pandemic, because a lot of work from home kind of thing, that it can actually bring joy to other people. Like, if I've got some in the clinic here and people comment on it, and, I've donated to some auctions and people love it. And, and it's a win-win. So I agree with Dr. Slocum. You need to find something that means something to you that you can sustain. And your interests might evolve over time, and that's fine too. But you need balance, I think, to be a good physician. And a teacher, I'm sure, and everything. So
a few thoughts. I've got some I've circled here. For me, some of that outlet for just sanity, especially over the COVID year, was nature. Getting out, because we couldn't really go anywhere, and so outside was okay. So I made it my mission to help the family see more of Kentucky in terms of outdoor areas. And so I did, we went to the Burnham Forest and we saw the giants. They have wooden troll giants there that are beautiful, and the whole park is gorgeous. Josephine Sculpture Park in Frankfurt is just a gem of a place that I didn't know about before actually seeking out. It's a family who they make their own sculptures and set them on their property, and you just make a small donation. You can have a picnic there and you can walk around their property and see the sculptures. We did geocaching. We just did anything we could do to get outside and appreciate nature. And so that's been a real respite for me. But some other things I think about is time to reflect on things, time to be silent for a moment. I was noticing myself, I don't know, recently going home, and on the drive from my office to home, I was thinking, okay, I should call so-and-so and get that set up. And then I need to call that. And it's like, when I made those calls, I was like, what else can I do before I get home? And I didn't even, it occurred to me, maybe I could just sit in silence till I get home and just think about the day, or do something where I feel like I'm not constantly moving. And I feel like life is so busy all the time that we don't stop to do that. And if we did, we might discover more things that help us have those outlets, whether it's nature or art or something else we love to do. And then something else that came to mind that's a little bit tangential to it is seeing people. So I have a friend who's a life coach, and one of her podcasts was about little things that you can do to show that you have seen someone today. So like if you're in the line at the grocery store, just noticing someone's name and saying, thank you, Jim, or thank you, Tanya, for your help today. I hope you have a good day. And just calling we actually tried this once, and calling someone by their name kind of caught them off guard. They're like, oh, well, thank you. It's like they expected not to be seen and us to go on our way. So I just wanted to share that, because I've seen it be little things that can be impactful and lasting.
Could you share your friend's podcast with us if you have a minute?
Yeah, definitely. Her name is Ellen Martin, and she is on Spotify with A Life Shared.
It seems like the conversation is sort of shifting to this topic of like burnout and taking care of yourself. And I was just wondering, like, what other examples you've seen of art and medicine that improve mental health or burnout, and what ideas do you wish to see happen to bridge arts and medicine regarding these?
So where I went to medical school, we had a yearly humanities festival where it was a lot of music actually, and performance art. But for 2 hours, you go to the library, and the medical library where I was, and you would just see people had these amazing talents that you had no idea existed, because you're in the context of science and medicine and whatever we do every day. And there used to be one here. I remember going over to, I think it was Singletary in the smaller room, and I remember like Scotty Day playing the piano, and there was a chorus, singing some songs, and I don't know if that stopped. I remember one young medical student playing the violin, and I thought, gosh, she could be in Lex Phil kind of thing. And I wonder if that was a COVID casualty, and I'd love to bring that back. Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I'd say the employee art call, which I'm a big fan of, but having spent some time walking through bare white corridors, and just to have art on the wall, and that sometimes things that kind of point beyond the situation, in the hallways of patient quarters. I'm a big fan of that. I've like to usually send a couple of pieces over and let them look at it anyway. But just it says there's more. We're not just here, doing our daily grind. We're pointing beyond this. There's more to what you see.
And I see Jason's on here. Now, Jason helped us put art up in our clinic. And I just want to say a shout out to UK Healthcare for this. They really do, I think I looked up something where there's actually you could treat it as a museum, and they have go see these pieces kind of a thing. UK Healthcare has been very forward thinking in this. And we work in kind of a beautiful place with some of the art that's up and around. I don't know, Jason, you want to say anything about that?
Well, thank you, because I was chomping at the bit. First of all, let me say that I absolutely wanted to be able to catch more of the your all's individual talks, but the scheduling didn't work out, and I even ran late on a meeting to hop on here. But I'm so happy to be here, and I just want to thank you all. And Kate, I think you're kind of put this together. It's so beautiful to be on here and hear this discussion. And what I want to say is that anything that you all think you want to make happen in terms of expanding, humanities, anything. And again, just following up on what Rob has said and what you have said, and April, it's not, I often shy away from the term art because it can be so off-putting to some people. Just shut down because they say, I'm not an artist. It's not for me, right? I think what we're really after is creative expression, right? And for you, like to Rob's point, I see that same artistic beauty in all these particular endeavors, like, whether it's the art of playing basketball, right? So how do we get people to break down that barrier and realize it's almost like a poison, if you have this, think of it as this fluid level of the need to express yourself, and it never gets out, it builds up almost to a toxic level within our psyche and even in our physical being. And so we've got to tap that valve and get that out. It's absolutely innate to who we are as human beings. And it's all we have to do is look throughout history. You know, we go back to rock paintings that have survived for thousands of years. It's been from the very beginning, it's been a human need to express ourselves, you know? And so thank you for the compliment. I mean, we work really hard around the visual arts and the performing arts, but I think we are lacking still in, although we've become sort of with arts and healthcare and music therapy and the arts that go on through child life. Sarah Brown, who I've worked with to start the Arts Cafe, which is geared towards medical surgery, medical residents. I think that's something that could expand to a broader, to med students and other physicians and other departments. So there's a lot of possibilities there. And I would be happy to be, you know, sort of to help facilitate any ideas that you all may have around expanding art or expanding efforts around creative expression or arts workshops, or, you know, it can be narrative medicine, it can be writing, you know. I just want to say that it's great that you are here, and let's see what we can do with this. I think it's so powerful that even, you know, there's maybe 15 of us, I think, on the call here. That can quickly multiply, but, you know, just the fact that we're having this conversation to me is really powerful, because again, you know, to Dr. Grazio's point, you can't really be a good human being, period, right? If you're not taking care of yourself, you know, you're sort of, again, going back to that idea of letting yourself, kind of poisoning yourself by not allowing that creative expression. I just think it's absolutely crucial to human existence, you know, irregardless, or not, I know that's not a word, regardless of the endeavor or the field that you're in. So I don't know, sorry if I'm rambling, but I'm just kind of excited, so.
Well, and I just to follow on that, we've even had some of our own exhibits go out into the wider community, which I think has a bridge building function as well. I mean, that is primarily for us here, our staff, our patients, our all of that, but when we can share something that goes even into a wider space or whatever, the museum in Lexington or something, that again, it makes a wider connection. Fun to see.
And it breaks down barriers, right? So what I think Rob was talking about, that call for art last year,
Yeah.
I had a couple pieces in there, which was amazing, you know, as an experience. Ended up hanging on the Loudon House walls, right? And so, of course, I went to the Loudon House to see what else was there, and saw, you know, some really cool stuff. I remember Ed Kasarskis, who's I think he's a neurologist here at UK, researcher, studies ALS and things like that. He had a picture of one of those, what do they call, the sour gum seeds that fall on the sidewalk, and, you know, they're just such trouble because they're so spiky. But he looked at it as like a COVID virus, and like, you know, when it was healthy and when it was dying. And I think, you know, it was so creative. So then I saw him at the immunization clinic, you know, in Kroger Field, where we were volunteering to give immunizations. And I would never have come up to this guy, but I knew who he was because he's kind of famous here. And I said, hey, I loved your COVID virus picture, you know, the seed pod. And, you know, I would never, so it breaks down barriers. It's almost, it gives you some commonality, right? And we need, I think, a little bit more of that in the world.
I completely agree. I've seen that with the students too. It helps break down barriers when they're being able to talk about things, or viewing their peers and praising their peers for their creativity. You know, there's something very satisfying about that. I think hearing from your peers that you've done well, or they think you've done well on something, and it's a conversation opener, like, as you said.
Yeah. One other twist to that I just like to put in is one of my themes I like to talk about is humanize and dehumanize. Illness is dehumanizing. It takes away things from us. We're less able to be the people we want to be. Shortens life, ends life, takes away, but that we may be humanized as we engage the full creativity of the other person, as we listen to the other person, as we draw out what they can create and do. And I'm just saying, if you can engage a person at the level of their own art making, at the creativity that they have to bring into the world. It can be an intensely humanizing experience in the midst of things that are going on that are threatening and taking away and beating down. So I'm just saying it can be a powerful way of healing, a powerful tool for good in the midst of a lot of hurt that's going on, especially in these recent years.
Yeah, that kind of jumps into something, Dr. Slocum, that I wanted to share with the group. There's been a lot of studies done in the use of improvisational comedy and how that can help Alzheimer's patients work with communication skills and like living in the moment. And there was a study done where they were interviewing the caretakers afterwards because the actual participants couldn't recall anything about the entire day. Their Alzheimer's was so severe. But the caretaker said that my mom has not spoken or communicated effectively for years, but there she was in this performance role, playing to perfection a princess being adored by many lovers. She talked, she joked, she was even appropriately rude. It was incredibly funny and moving for me to witness. She did not remember anything by the time we got home. And I just think that that really shows how it's not only healing for the patient, but it can be healing like for their family too, which I think is kind of cool.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I'm told, again, I'm not the music therapy person, but I'm told patients who, far into dementia, not able to converse, but will chime in on a song. I mean, if you can get them singing, they can pick it up. And I mean, again, it's like it's going to a deep place or a place that they can connect with, even when other faculties have deficits.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case because, we share an office with music therapy, and I've been, sort of hand in hand with them since they were, implemented along with arts and healthcare at the hospital. And, there's a lot of stories I hear from, there's research, but then there's the anecdotal stories I hear directly from them that, the music therapy can actually open up the ability to remember periods of time in their life, particular songs and so forth. And I think that, to the broader point, when we're born, or our mind is sort of this one big open, unlocked door. And as we age, more doors appear and more of them lock, And so what are those keys? And I think a lot of those keys to opening those doors in our mind are these elements of creative expression. And so, I mean, again, right there, we have examples of how, whether it was the improvisational comedy, whether it's narrative medicine, whether it's music, whether it's viewing an artwork or creating an artwork, unlocks some door and some potential. And I think it's the lack of having that effectively incorporated into our lives. We've really dropped the ball in terms of our educational system, in terms of our healthcare system, in incorporating these things into our lives as preventative medicine, as preventative wellness. And so that doesn't mean that, there's no reason to adapt and do these things now. And then hopefully down the road, we can build these into the system so that, we have a healthier existence. But again, the opportunities are endless when you look at creativity and what it can achieve.
It's interesting that you bring up programs, because that's sort of another one of our questions that we were wanting to ask is that we know that there are many artisan programs that focus on addressing mental health and just kind of healing in general. But we were wondering, what kind of program do you imagine to address like maybe the root cause of burnout in healthcare, or I guess just healing in general? And what sort of programs do you imagine? And then what challenges do you see facing such programs?
I think we're doing better at recognizing how important balance and well-being is. I know in pediatrics, which is where I live, there's actually, a couple faculty members, Ria Vidrine and Karen Sorgi from my division even, who are meeting and bringing around ideas to the various faculty members. They like every couple months, they'll come around and bring insomnia cookies and with the therapy dogs, for example. And just, it's a touching little time when we could just take a break, from the clinic busyness and just pet a dog, have a cookie, and I think it's a metaphor for get some balance in your life, and I don't know about programs per se. We may get there. I don't know of any. I don't know if anybody else knows of more formal programs than that, but I think we are realizing as a field, and almost by necessity, I think, and maybe that's another effect of the pandemic, where I think mental health issues have kind of risen up in terms of importance. And so, students coming into our fields now and patients that we treat now have more mental health issues, right, and concerns. And it's taken a higher priority, which I think is about time. So.
Yeah, one thing I would say with that, and this is obviously coming from my narrative medicine perspective, but communication. I mean, I think communication is so essential. And I do believe, just even in the time that I've been here at UK Healthcare, I've seen a shift to more communication, more wellness, more talk about wellness groups. I mean, resilience or whatever, to have groups intentionally given over to sharing their stories, where it's okay to share your frustrations, share, your hurt. And I felt like physicians and other professionals with whom I have had the pleasure to associate have grown up and been taught to be professionally stoic, that they're going to hold it all in and project this image of total control and total order in their lives, when, as I'm fond of saying to my patients, that none of us have this. Everybody's got issues. If you see someone who acts like they don't have any issues at all, they've got a really nice facade. But to move to a place where it's okay to claim those issues and talk it out. And indeed, as I say, it's the people who have the courage to face them and talk them through. I mean, that's the courage, not the avoidance. So anything that can be done to build in opportunities for that give and take. So I'd say journal workshops. I've done that with residence groups and others, and it could be good, or first-year students. But I mean, you could do the same with art or music or movement or any of those. But it just puts it in the routine. And they've even got the blocks in place. If you just kind of get to the people that are the gatekeepers for those and say, okay, on the first Wednesday of every month, we're going to have this activity. And it's, everybody ain't going to come and everybody ain't going to engage, but some will. And it kind of helps to shape a culture where it's okay to do that. Even if you don't do it yourself, you're not going to be, what's with Joe? He's, got it on his sleeve. No, he's dealing with it, and that's good. So.
I would say there's this thing called Schwartz Center rounds. I don't know if you guys know about this, but we used to have it in person. It's been going on here for maybe 8-10 years, something like that. I was among the first, what they call the physician champions, to foster the. Anyway, what this is where there's one in the Children's Hospital, there's one at Good Sam, there's one at the for adult patients at Chandler, and it's where anybody who's HIPAA certified, compliant, can come, and you talk about. It's usually a case that's usually very. Either inspirational or challenging or bad outcome. It's not more M&M rounds. It's not it's not like a swarm to try and figure out what happened. It's where people can come and just talk about their feelings. And some of those sessions have been just tremendous, where people share their feelings and it is a program, I guess, that was started by a patient up in Mass General who was dying of lung cancer, and he realized that his care providers didn't have a place where they can all just take time off and just reflect on being a healthcare provider of some sort. And so this brings in, at least in the children's ones, physicians, nurses, child life, music therapies, chaplaincy, hospital administrators have come, everybody, environmental services people have come, and it's just a rich, rich place. And so if you guys hear about this, and especially if they have them in person again after the pandemic dies down, I would encourage you to kind of check them out, because I think that hits a lot of what we're talking about here.
I was going to mention that Christine, actually, I think you mentioned the other day, one way to incorporate this sort of easily in the classroom is just to show an image right before we do a talk that has to do maybe with the disease we're talking about that day, and show it on the PowerPoint and see what people think about it. We don't have to have like a talking session, but I think oftentimes programs like we're thinking about will be attended by individuals who are already interested in such things. They already embrace the art aspect of things, but maybe some students feel like they don't have the time, or they're not an artist and they're not sure up front what they could, benefit overall. And that would be a way to incorporate it in a way that's not time consuming, just kind of dabble in it and expose. And then if someone wants to become more invested, then those other sessions that, programs could be introduced to them. But just trying to think of a way to more ubiquitously include it in small doses to get more investment in it. Or maybe students, like Christine, like you said, students in the class could create something if they're wanting to and share it with their peers as an introduction to a topic.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to, I know this is there's sort of the defined panel, but I don't want to miss this opportunity to mention that, again, so Sarah Brown with surgery, with the surgery residency, if you all are interested, anybody that would like to take the discussion further, because the Arts Cafe is really just targeted at surgery residents right now. It was initially a pilot, but the idea is not, so we Arts and Healthcare supports it financially, but we have a space over at the SAVS building, the School of Visual Art, and we hire an instructor to teach, to do a workshop where the participants get to create a certain art in a certain medium. So it might be ceramics one time and printmaking, but there are other components to it. The idea is with the Arts Cafe is that it's a socialization time period. So there's the opportunity to talk and interact, and then there's food. So, it's sort of this idea of food, conversation, and art, and exposing. So maybe you just go for the conversation and the food, and then you're exposed to several different types of mediums or art making, and maybe you end up gravitating. I know that's happened where, especially ceramics has been popular, where several people have, at least a couple of people have purchased their own pottery wheel, and they've really, gone headlong into that artistic aspect. I would be curious to see, and would be happy to have, like, maybe Sarah could even make a presentation, because I've been thinking about how we should expand this to the broader UK healthcare community, but it could be College of Medicine. It could be, we could expand it to all physicians. Anyways, that thought is out there. So if anyone's interested and wants to take that conversation further, that's another example of something we could help facilitate.
The one other just kind of variation of this I don't want to lose is, as I said, one of my patients was kind enough to let me use three of her paintings for my presentation earlier this week. And just the encouragement of art by our patients as well. I mean, we've talked about staff, but the creative work that they may do and may be willing to share, and even share for others. I always remember in the lobby of the the Roach building in the cancer center, there was a mask used for a patient receiving radiation to the head that at the end of their time of treatment, they'd been given their mask since it was fitted for them. And they put like Native American symbols and such. It was beautiful. It was like turning this into something completely other than what it had been used for, but also sort of like a victory lap in a way of having successfully completed that treatment and then offered it up to kind of a higher purpose. So I just say opportunities for patients to share the works of art and creativity that they've come to, especially during their time of treatment, I think has a powerful potential to inspire and to share the feelings of treatment.
I wanted to bring back to something, Dr. Slocum, that you mentioned, which is it's almost like taking my breath away a little bit. Just how you mentioned the humanizing and dehumanizing. I know this was a while back, but you talked about how dehumanizing illness can be, but how humanizing self-expression can be. But that also one of the most courageous things we can do is move to a place where we can face the issues that we're dealing with. So it's almost like shocking the level of courage it takes to accept and move through something that's truly like a dehumanizing experience. I think that speaks, and it's a testament to the strength of every patient and every human who's going through something really challenging. I wanted to transition here as well too. So one thing that Dr. Hatcher, you touched on really beautifully was the idea of seeing people, of us seeing our classmates, and even in a small way, like, I mean, seeing the people who are bagging our groceries and seeing the people like who are at the same gas pumps as we are. And then Dr. D'Orazio, I really loved how you described how there's a commonality that artistic expression provides us, where we can find a middle ground with people and introduce ourselves in situations that we might otherwise not have. So here I wanted to take an opportunity to ask and see if you all had a chance, and it's totally fine if not, but if you all had a chance to engage with some of the art pieces that were submitted, and if you all would like to comment or touch on any reflections from that, anything that stood out to you.
We also have one of our artists is on the call as well. Hey, Daniel. And so again, this can be you all talking, but this can also be anyone who has had the chance to see the artworks and, what did it make you feel, or what did it make you think of, and maybe really in terms of COVID and mental health or otherwise.
I was just amazed at the talent and the different forms of expression, and how really it's infinite how you can express yourself. And, from the young man that was playing that beautiful piece on the guitar to the Indian dancing and the photojournalism kind of piece, it was just great. A question I had, are they all here from UK, those presentations, or?
Most of them are. There are a few who are from medical students from other colleges. I think one of them is from, and it should say in the description, is from one of the Indian classical dances from Albany Medical College. One of the Indian ones was from Cornell. I think, and then one of the clarinetist is at SCAPA here in Lexington.
If you see me, I have a little bit of notes, so I can remember all. So I watched all of them, and I love the reimagined pain one that starts out with the aerial, with all the frantic news, and then you switch to this aerial view of nature. And some things that came to mind when I saw that was the world is still here as it always was, right? In the midst of all the news and the panic that we have, and just the sorrow in our world, and that nature goes through this time of loss and death and dormancy too, and reemerges, with beauty and brighter views. And just that the contrast, because I love nature so much, that was very striking to me in that video, to just realize we'll be okay. It's just we have to get through this darkness. And another piece that struck me was the clarinet, because it reminded me, so when I was in college, I took some piano lessons. My mom taught me piano, but I wasn't always the best at practicing. So I tried to get better in college. And I remember my teacher, Dr. Reynolds, telling me you have to think of this sonata as a journey that you're going on. You know, you have some staccato, some happy upbeat moments, and you've got some slower moments in your journey. And I was thinking, I heard that in the clarinet and piano by Olivia Burberry. And so I was thinking it was hopeful. It sounded like she was on a journey. And if you go to 1 minute and 15 seconds in, the tone sort of changes to a slower pace. And you can tell, if I were narrating this in my mind, I would imagine the person encountering a blockage somewhere in their road, just based on the music, and kind of wondering what they're going to do. And then in like 1 minute and 24 seconds in, it goes to where I see or I hear the second voice coming in. It's like, oh no, you can get through this. You can go on. It's going to be okay. It turns upbeat, and they make it through that blockage. And so that's how I was relating to that music based on my own experiences, is trying to imagine that performance as a journey. And it was halfway through when I noticed that the clarinet player had a mask on. I didn't even notice that she had a mask on until about halfway through. And I was like, that's so meta in so many ways to me. But one, like I've become so used to seeing masks that I don't even process that now. But two, that she was making this beautiful music despite the mask, you know. So, and the other one that spoke to me was the one about depression, because I have a family member who struggles with that, and just seeing how I could see her in that music, and how I also feel helpless sometimes trying to help her.
So I just wanted to, if I may, bend the prompt just a little, because from the, as I say, from the paintings that came from my patient, I know some of you haven't heard this, so I want to make sure you get a chance to, because I think it fits so deeply with some of the things we're talking about. Is the patient had completed this painting of sort of like a seascape at night with stars, and then had painted, was like painting around the outside, and realized that she had made a mistake. I mean, something had gone wrong. And she said at an earlier time, she would have probably just rejected it at that point, like, this is wrong, this is imperfect, this is not my original vision. But she said instead, she continued to work with it and paint with it, to sort of speak, go with the flow of it, and ended up integrating it into a new design that was even more beautiful. And to me, I believe that's also kind of a paradigm for healing. In other words, that you weren't expecting this to happen. And the first tendency might be, can we just go back to where we were before? You can't go back, but you can go forward to find a new expression, a new blend that is better than before, better than you might have even imagined. So she was able to work her seeming mistake into something that was a beautiful addition to her creativity. So.
Happened to me once. I was making just some stripes, okay, and I used a lot of tape. And anyone who does this will soon find out that acrylic bright silver does not dry very fast. And so I had tape on it, thinking it was dry. It wasn't dry. I took the tape off because I put the next color on, and it ripped off half the bright silver. And it was like, oh my God, this just ruined, because now it's like, weird. It's got texture I didn't envision and stuff. Then I sat back and kind of looked at it, like Dr. Slocum said, and said, it's not so bad. Why don't we just go with that? And so I ended up, and it's on the walls. This is one that my wife put on the wall. It became like textured, right? So it was sort of like tree bark and different trees and stuff. And so I appreciate that, Dr. Slocum.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if we're gonna have a moment of space, is one other thing I'll throw in to kind of follow on Ina's comment about the challenges that are faced. Is one of the writers in my field talks about illness as a, quote, biographical disruption. And we think about it, and it's not just an illness, it kind of disrupts who we are. It disrupts our identity. So I'm just saying, if we can use art to re-engage that, to rediscover that kind of in the middle. And it's not just an illness. It's not just I broke my arm. It means I can't write with my hand anymore. It means I can't open the door anymore. But then if I'm renegotiating that, I mean, how do I make sense out of that? How do I make sense of my new body if I've got a cast on it for the next 6 weeks? And maybe there's a way that we come to terms with it. Maybe we paint the cast, or maybe it glows in the dark, but it's not just a wound. It's something new. You know?
That's really beautiful. And it's one of those things that I'm hearing too, is like, you know, you have these expectations about what your life is going to look like, but to have that confidence and courage to weave in the mistakes and then find something that you totally weren't expecting. It makes all of those, you know, hindsight is 2020. So it makes all of those mistakes, errors, illnesses, tough experience, your picture in a way that is just, I keep coming back to, I keep like visualizing Dr. D'Orazio, your images. I mean, it's just it's like so many different pieces and they fit together. It's like really full mosaic. I absolutely love this. I'll be honest, I've teared up a few times in this conversation. I just love
It's a good lesson too for recovering perfectionists. It's like, you know, you can work with the mistakes, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Absolutely.
It's not gonna be perfect.
Yeah, definitely. And I know we don't have too much time left right now, but we do have a few more questions. I'm also happy to open up the floor for any of our audience members who have any questions or reflections that they would like to share. We can leave the last few minutes open floor. We can do that as well. But I have a question ready just in case. Or I'll throw out and then we'll see how it goes.
Well, actually, if you don't mind, I'll mention something. It's already been brought up a couple of times, but there's a couple of things. So we have the annual employee art call that my program runs, but it is open. It's focused on UK healthcare, but it is open to the entire campus. So if, for example, College of Medicine wants to make sure that students know about it and may participate, we can definitely, if there's, you know, like I'm sure you have some kind of a listserv or an email blast, some, you know, platform to communicate. I'm happy to get that information to you. It'll probably be later in the spring, but we have really good participation. So I think that's, and then I also, through sort of a loose nonprofit called Create, I take this arts and health message out into the community, which is one of the things Dr. D'Orazio was mentioning. Some of his work ended up in a Create exhibit we did, which is sort of taking that UK arts and healthcare message out into the galleries and the community and exposing our broader public to this whole idea of arts and health and creativity. So I'd be happy to share those opportunities and, you know, open up some line of communication so that College of Medicine students and anyone else that wants to know can be in that chain of communication when these things get announced.
Yeah, I think we would absolutely love that. And Kate and I and Diala, I'm not sure if she's on her call, she's in her rotations right now, but so we're involved with the UK Vitals Club, which is our humanities club here. So we would love to be in touch and stay in touch and get that message out, because they're like, and again, I don't mean to call Daniel out and put him on the spot, but I was just so shocked because it's so nice to have opportunities like these where you realize how uniquely people interact with and engage with the world. So I'm sure that if we sent it out, there would actually be a lot more interest than you may even realize. So we'd love to reach out.
I was wondering if we would be able to get an email with all of our names on it so we could stay in touch with each other.
That'd be good.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah, but I believe Kate and I are going to have a follow-up about, so, you know, I'll be keeping the line of communication open there. And then, yeah, feel free to loop me in on any other email chains that love to, a lot of times the best ideas we get for programming come from sort of sources and people outside of our department. Some of the great things we've done have been, hey, I have this idea, and we say, all right, I love it, let's make it happen. So,
I really appreciate that. That reminds me, years ago, I think I even suggested to Jason, is I would come across art walking through the hospital. I mean, there's a floor in Pavilion A where there was nursing staff who would put, they have the whiteboards, and they would draw an artwork for every month. So it would be up there like something humorous for March might have, I don't know, St. Patrick's, or I don't know, maybe hearts for Valentine's, but it was something creative that someone there did just to kind of beautify that space. And if you keep your eyes open, it's all over. I mean, people have decorated windows, decorated doors, and it's just, again, it's humanizing. It's not just institutional white or something. It makes it a welcoming and engaging kind of space, healing space.
And one quick thought on that point, to hammer that home, we're actually working with CODA right now, getting ready to put an exhibit up next week where an artist in Louisville has taken portrait photos and then rendered them into these kind of mixed media paintings. And the whole concept, again, like you're saying, instead of this sterile or strictly electronic or written communication about the importance of organ transplantation and organ donation, now we've taken this other medium of communication and we've put these faces of real people impacted by organ donation. And that's a whole new level of, the idea behind it is to encourage organ donation amongst Black and Brown communities. And,
right.
It's just another way that we can humanize it, to your point, and really put real people in place of, sometimes the communications go in one ear and out the other, but if we communicate through this additional medium, sometimes the message is much more powerful.
Yeah, it's not just data. I mean, these are real people, real people's lives. I mean, people you could touch, it's not just statistics.
I think it can all be very transformative, and it could be milestone at a time. I think we could convince people who would never expect to enjoy or use art, if they're just only driven by numbers or, goal points. I think we could inspire that, just starting small and keeping that in mind, that is possible.
No matter what, in our capitalist world, no matter how much they've pounded it into our heads our entire lives, revenue is not the most important thing in the world, right?
Well, we've just about reached our time I want to be respectful of everyone's time today. I really want to thank you all for coming and participating in this, all of our audience members, and also really want to thank our key speakers for taking the time to share their stories and everything that they've done and accomplished and seen and felt and heard and with us, and giving us things to think about moving forward and how we can reimagine medicine for COVID-19, for mental health, or even for last year for, with health equity, but just in general for healing, how art really is wrapped up with medicine more than we think about it. And this is one of those, I really feel like this is a starting point, as Dr. Hatcher said, kind of a baby step towards, I hope, getting all of us to realize how the two really are so connected and how they should be.
Yeah, I think this has been integrative medicine for all of us, helping to put elements together that maybe we haven't done before.
And thank you, especially to the students who organized this. I mean,
yeah, thank you.
That's just great. I've enjoyed this very much and learned a lot and introduced to a new community. So thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
work.
Yes, I echo all the sentiments expressed. It's been a really treasured time with you all.
All right, well, I will go ahead and stop the recording.